So today we'll be speaking to Akhil Daswani, who is the co-founder of Oncourse Vantage. So Akhil, to start off, 2021 has been a very challenging year. Can you please tell us the trends which you have observed, within the education sector? Lots of people are thinking of deferring, and there's not in relation to students going abroad and also applying to new universities. So what advice would you give to students looking for study abroad programs?
Yeah, I mean, so it's been an interesting year. I think one thing the pandemic has definitely done is it's made people sort of rethink all their future plans. Definitely evaluate what they want from their life. I think one of the big things that we saw this year was schools still remain shut for the most part. So we saw a lot of frustration from parents. There was this feeling that, listen, we need to get our kids the best education possible, and I'm just talking about high school kids at this stage, and for them, the parents were looking at how what are the best opportunities worldwide. And I think initially, when cost was a factor, uh, they would sort of hold back and say, listen, we'll send them for postgrad. But there were so many people who just changed their mind and said, listen, I'll look for scholarships, I'll look for financial aid, but I need to get my kid a good education. And that's clearly not been happening here. And that frustration was actually what led to a lot of people applying abroad from really remote parts. And that's something we saw. In terms of deferrals, we saw more of that in 2020. 2021, we didn't see so much of that, mostly because colleges opened up in person. So that sort of continued. This trend wasn't alone in India. It was happening all over the world. So because of which all the best universities became even more competitive. And so this is a trend that we saw pretty significantly in the undergrad space. In the postgrad space, it was a little different, right? You're dealing with a different demographic. We were seeing, we're seeing kids fresh out of college, in their first jobs, some getting laid off, some just, evaluating if do I want to spend my life in this country. So there's a lot of again, I think the pandemic was that great reset because it sort of made everyone, no matter how young, old you were, to sort of sit back and say, okay, what do I want from my life, for myself, for my family, for my kids, and for those guys who were just in their first job or just early out in their careers, a lot of them said, listen, I want to settle somewhere else. So we saw a lot of people applying for their masters, for their MBAs, with an idea to emigrate, not just from an idea to sort of learn. So that was definitely a trend that accelerated through the pandemic for sure.
Right. So I just have a follow-up question with that. What should students in the junior classes study, to prepare for study abroad? With ICIC having so many options for math, science, and there are many combinations. So what sort of advice would you give to a junior who's looking to apply?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to sort of give generic advice because every student is different and every case is so different. But if I had to just sort of give broad advice in general, I would say, listen, math and sciences are the future. In general, no matter how much you may hate these subjects, try not to let go of them too early. And when I say early, I mean before ninth grade. Like there are some kids who just can't do it, and I understand for their sake. But 95% of all jobs today and tomorrow are going to be quant related, and the best paid jobs definitely will. So the more you're sort of stuck with math and natural sciences, the better for you. Also, more than anything, it sets a framework for your mind. I really think it does, which is very different from when you study a subjective subject. So I found people who are sort of good in math and sciences to also be very logical people. They tend to be people who are sort of, it just sort of translates to life in general. But my broad advice to younger kids would be try to hold on to your math and sciences for as long as possible, if possible. I understand there are some cases where it's just not possible, but if possible.
Right. So my other question is, could you just tell us about Oncourse and your entire journey, in this alternative education platform space? Could you tell us what sort of got you to Oncourse starting it?
Sure. That's I don't know how much time we have, but it's a long story. But it sort of started over a decade ago when we were in college ourselves, me and Alicia. And one of the things which we obviously realized was there was a need for this. There were a lot of individual counselors in the space who were very good, but because of there being such few of them, it would take very long to get appointments. They weren't able to sort of take students on or guide them through the entire journey. They would just sort of meet you once or twice. And we felt like there was a need for this. We weren't sure how, like we were obviously young, 22, 23. So we just literally started from our dining table. Like that's literally how we started. And slowly grew the business, started just, undergrad, US, because that was our focus. That's where we were from. Started a lot with athletes because that's sort of the process we knew and understood. And then we obviously scaled from there. We sort of started looking at UK, Canada, Singapore, all became super popular. We obviously started a postgrad division a few years ago. And then we also started prep, which is SAT, ACT. I think the key thing for us was the hiring process, bringing in really good people to sort of manage each of these things, who also bought into our vision early. Some of whom have sort of been with us for many years now. And it's been a really fulfilling journey. And I think the part of it is because there was a need for the service very early on, and we were sort of early to identify it. And we're pretty relentless with our focus on service. Like we're really focused on making sure that the client is really happy, making sure they get eventually what they're looking for, or at least we try our level best to make sure that happens. Everything else we can sort of leave, right? Because eventually college admissions is, you can say it's outcome driven, but the outcomes are not necessarily in our hands. So we obviously try to use our years of experience and try to make sure that we do the best possible service. And then after that, we leave the rest to luck and fate and see what happens. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey. It's been fun. We love the industry. We think the industry is going to continue to grow. And most importantly, actually, it's we just enjoy working with people of that age and sort of helping them achieve their dreams. Like that's the fun part, right? Like
of course.
It's not just a business for the sake of sort of profit, but a business which actually gets you a really amazing, gratifying outcome.
Yeah, makes sense. Because even when with my experience with Oncourse, I think everyone was so approachable, even though everything was happening on Zoom. I think all the
so that's one of our USPs always was, right? So we didn't ever want to be inaccessible, right? We wanted, and obviously, even though we've grown old, our focus was even whoever we hire and whoever sort of works with the kids should be relatable, should have their own experience, should be someone who's sort of a mentor and less of a counselor per se. And that's the sort of fundamental difference that we were trying to create. And I'm glad that you had a positive experience. But that's our focus, is just making sure every student who leaves us says, hey, they tried their best, they worked hard, and I can leave here saying that I had a great experience.
Yeah, makes no sense. Because with all the subordinates, I was able to speak to Ashwini, Sneha, and get their insights on my essays, and I think that insight also really helped me stand out with my applications to various universities. So thank you so much for
for sure.
Yeah,
honestly, it's honestly, each one is better than the other. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, everyone has their own strengths, and we always have two people on each case, so they always work very closely with each client.
Yeah. Anyways, that's all for today. Thank you, and hope to see you soon.
Perfect. Absolutely, Sean. You take care. Stay safe.
Yeah, you too. Take care. Stay safe. Okay. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks, man. Bye.